The next situation within inflection route number 1 is when a display form ends with the chi consonant once ta is removed. For example, 먹다, 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 which is the display form of the verb eat. You can see that it is a perfect example because it ends with the chi consonant once ta is removed. Now in this case, in order to inflect the ta ending into some kind of a new ending, we will apply a 3-step formula. Step number 1, remove ta, which we already did. Number 2, as the irregular middle section, we will place the syllable a or all. Now, what is the deciding factor that decides whether it's going to be a or all? Now, that deciding factor is the vowel that came right before the chi consonant. Once again, the vowel that came right before the chi consonant. In this case, all, the vowel all. Now the reason why the vowel that came right before the chi consonant decides what the irregular middle section will look like is because there are 21 vowels in Korean. And if the vowel that came right before the chi consonant is one of the four vowels being a, ya, o, or yo. Now, if the vowel that came right before the chi consonant is one of the four, then the irregular middle section will look like a, a. However, if it is not one of the four, in other words, one of the other 17, then the irregular middle section will look like all. All. Now in this case, it's all. The vowel all is not a, not ya, not o, and not yo either. So it is not one of the four. In other words, it is one of the other 17. Therefore, as the irregular middle section, we will place all instead of a. So therefore, according to step number 2, now we have 먹어, 먹어, 먹어. And now, according to step number 3, now we can attach some kind of a new ending. This time, let's use the ending that indicates actual form past tense, which is 써요. 써요, 써요. Of course, an ending that belongs to inflection route number 1. So according to step number 3, now we have 먹었어요, 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 which is the actual form past tense of the verb eat, which is ate. So for example, we can use it like this. Let's say, I tell my friend that I am very hungry late at night. Now, my friend is surprised because he has never seen me before say that I am hungry at this time. So I am going to say, I ate dinner early. That's why I'm hungry again. Of course, I will first omit components that are too obvious according to the context. Therefore, the subject I will be omitted. Of course, I'm talking about I. I am explaining the reason why I am hungry. So of course, when I say I ate dinner early, of course, I'm talking about I. Which leaves us with the object dinner, the adverb early, and the verb ate. Therefore, the Korean sentence will look like 저녁, 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 dinner in red, 일찍, 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 early in black, 먹었어요, 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 ate in blue. 저녁 일찍 먹었어요. 저녁 일찍 먹었어요. 저녁 일찍 먹었어요. Ate dinner early. For another example, 작다, 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 which is the display form of the adjective small. You can see that it is a perfect example because it does end with the G consonant once 다 is removed. Therefore, we will apply the same three-step formula. Step number 1, remove 다, which we already did. Step number 2, we're going to place a or all as the irregular middle section. And of course, in order to properly decide which one it will be, we have to take a look at the vowel that came right before the G consonant. The vowel is a, which is one of the four. So if it is one of the four, it means that the irregular middle section will be a. If it were one of the other 17, it would have been all. However, in this case, we have a, which is one of the four. So the irregular middle section, once again, will look like a. So according to step number 2, we have 작아, 작아, 작아. And then now, according to step number 3, we can attach some kind of a new ending. This time, let's use the ending that is the equivalent of because, which is 서, 서, 서. Now, there are a couple of versions of because in Korean. However, some versions should not actually be used in real-life conversations, and some versions are used, however, only used in very tailored, specific situations. On the other hand, 서 can be used in pretty much all situations. So according to step number 3, now we have 작아서, 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 which is no longer just small, now it's because small. For example, when we say, it is uncomfortable because it is small. Now, as you can see, we have because a bridge. What do I mean by bridge? Now we are reviewing what we have learned in the previous video, the 8th video out of the 15, which is how to use a bridge. Now, what do I mean by a bridge? A grammatical component that is connecting two sentences so that they can work as one, a compound sentence. There's a reason why I do not like calling them conjunctions, right? Because in Korean, you will see a lot of grammatical components that are technically not conjunctions, however, still play the role of a bridge. Therefore, I like to use the term bridge. Number 1, you have to identify whether the bridge that you are using is a reverse bridge or just a regular bridge. Now, how do you know if you have a reverse bridge? Apply the simple trick. The trick of saying the bridge and the second sentence first. And if it still makes the same logical sense and flow, then you have a reverse bridge. Because it is small, it is uncomfortable. So you can see that it still makes the same logical sense and flow. Therefore, it tells me that because is a very typical example of a reverse bridge. So what happens if you have a reverse bridge? Well, quite literally, it means that you will have the order between the blue and red sentence reversed. So we will start with the red sentence. The second thing that you have to keep in mind when you are using a bridge is the fact that a bridge, not just because, but all bridges, for example, if, and, but, because, so, when, all bridges are not independent components. They are not standalones. Therefore, they have to become a part of the word right in front of them as their ending. That's why we gave the because ending to the adjective small, and now we have the adjective because small. 작아서, because small. Let's say I am traveling with a friend and we are staying at a hotel for a couple of days, and my friend asks me, how is the bed? And I'm going to say, it is uncomfortable because it is small. If that's the case, if I were to, of course, omit all the grammatical components that are too obvious according to the context, or components that are not used in Korean, I will omit it. Of course, I am talking about the bed. You asked me, how is the bed? And no is, am, was, were, are, which leaves us with the adjective small. However, once again, a bridge in Korean is never an independent component. It has to become a part of the word right in front of it as its ending. That's why we have the adjective because small. 작아서. So now we finished the red sentence, crossed the bridge, and now we are heading into the blue sentence. I will omit it. Of course, I'm talking about the bed. And once again, no is, am, was, were, are, which leaves us with the adjective uncomfortable. Now we are going to briefly review what we have learned in the previous video, the 8th video out of the 15, which is how to inflect the ta ending into some kind of a new ending when you have a display form that ends with the syllable ha, once ta is removed. For example, 불편하다, 불편하다, which is the display form of the adjective uncomfortable. Now, what was the three-step formula for when you have a display form that ends with ha once ta is removed? It was step number 1, remove ta, which we already did. Step number 2, we're going to change the ha syllable into he. Therefore, now we have 불편해. And then now, according to step number 3, we can attach some kind of a new ending as long as it's an ending that belongs to inflection route number 1. Right now, I simply need the actual form, present tense, of the adjective uncomfortable. So, the ending that indicates actual form, present tense, you belongs to inflection route number 1. Therefore, according to step number 3, I can attach it, and now we have 불편해요. And by extension, we actually have the full sentence. 작아서 불편해요. 작아서 불편해요. 작아서 불편해요. Because small, uncomfortable. Now let's move on to the next situation within inflection route number 1, which is when a display form ends with the N consonant once 다 is removed. For example, 신다, 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 which is the display form of the verb wear. However, there are a lot of versions of wear in Korean. It depends on which body part what you're wearing goes to. This version of wear is a very specific version of wear that you will use when you are wearing something, putting on something on your feet. Therefore, usually used for shoes and socks. And you can see that it is a perfect example because it does end with the N consonant once ta is removed. In this case, the inflecting formula will be exactly the same as the formula that we applied in the previous situation, when a display form ends with the G consonant once ta is removed. It's going to be exactly the same 3-step formula. So step number 1, remove ta, which we already did. Step number 2, place a or o as the irregular middle section. And of course, what decides whether it's going to be a or o is the vowel that came right before the N consonant. If that vowel is one of the 4, a, ya, o, or yo, then it means that the irregular middle section will look like a. However, if it's not one of the 4, in other words, one of the other 17, then it's going to be all. In this case, the vowel e is not a, ya, o, or yo. It's one of the other 17. Therefore, this time we will place all as the irregular middle section. So according to step number 2, now we have 신어, 신어, 신어. And then, according to step number 3, we can attach some kind of a new ending. This time, we're going to use the ending for have to. 야 돼요, 야 돼요. So therefore, now according to step number 3, we have 신어야 돼요, 신어야 돼요, 신어야 돼요. And now it is no longer just wear, it's have to wear. Of course, wear something on your feet, socks, or shoes. So, for example, we can use it when we say something like, you have to wear socks. Now, of course, let's first omit grammatical components that are too obvious according to the context. You is almost always too obvious according to the context, right? Because if I am calling someone you, it means one of two things, or both. It means I am directly looking at you as I'm speaking, or you are the only one participating in this conversation right now, or both. Whichever it is too obvious that, of course, I'm talking to you. And if you feel like it's too obvious, that of course you're talking about socks. One for the left foot and one for the right foot. Therefore, if you feel like the plural s is too obvious, then you will take it out. Which leaves us with the verb have to wear and the object socks. Therefore, the Korean sentence will look like 양말 신어야 돼요. 양말 신어야 돼요. 양말 신어야 돼요. have to wear socks. For another example, 앉다, 앉다, which is the display form of the verb hug or hold when you are hugging or holding a living being. You can see that it is a perfect example because it does end with the N consonant once ta is removed. Therefore, we will apply the three-step formula. Step number 1, remove ta, which we already did, and then place a or all. And of course, the deciding factor will be the vowel that came right before the N consonant. In this case, a. So the vowel is one of the four. Therefore, it means that the irregular middle section will look like a. Therefore, according to step number 2, now we have ana, ana. And then, now we can attach some kind of a new ending. This time, we will use the ending that indicates actual form past tense. 써요, 써요. And according to step number 3, we attached it, and that's how we ended up with 안았어요, 안았어요, which is the actual form past tense of the verb hug or hold, which is hugged or held. So for example, we can use it when we say something like, I finally held the baby. Let's say my neighbor has a baby boy, and at first I was terrified to hold the baby because I was scared of accidentally hurting the baby. But after some time, I finally mustered up the courage and finally held the baby. So let's say my friend says, you seem to be in a good mood, and I am going to say, yes, I finally held the baby. Now, if that's the context, I will omit I because, of course, I'm talking about I, because my friend said, you seem to be in a good mood. So, if I am going to say, yes, I finally held the baby, of course, I'm talking about I. And no articles, no us and thus in Korean, which leaves us with the object baby, the adverb finally, and the verb held, hold in past tense. 애기 드디어 안았어요. 애기 드디어 안았어요. 애기 드디어 안았어요. Finally, held baby. Now that was it for today's video. In the next video, we will keep on moving forward until we cover each and every situation within inflection route number 1. Inflection is by far the most important aspect of learning Korean. Therefore, if you fully grasp inflection through this course, you are not taking a step forward, you are taking 1,000 steps forward. So don't give up, and I will see you in the next video.